Welcome to the Packer Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Herrick, and I sit down with leaders and disruptors in the fresh produce industry who are reimagining how we grow, move, and deliver fresh fruits and vegetables in a changing world. Joining me today is Tara Murray from Quiero. Thank you so much for joining me, Tara.
Hi, Christina. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes. I think this will be a really great conversation. Looking forward to hearing a little bit more about, what makes Quiero special. I know quite a bit since I've been to the booth visit a few times, but I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Good. And having a few snacks too.
Yes. I tell everyone that when I go to, I that's one of my favorite things about going to produce events is you never go hungry. There's always such great food, and obviously it's fresh fruits and vegetables, which makes it even better.
Exactly. You can check that off your list for the day, right? I've
Yes.
hit I've hit my full plate of veggies for the day.
Yeah. So let's start off. So obviously, I kind of teased it with the premise of the podcast is to talk with leaders and change makers. So talk about what that means to you and kind of how being a change maker is reflected in the work that you do with Quiero.
As we know, change is the only constant. So to me, being a change maker means just staying on top of things, seeing what's going on out in the world, staying on top of trends, seeing health trends, people trends, food trends, taste trends, and how can we be a part of it and stay nimble enough that when taste and things do change, that we're there in the forefront or we're there leading people to understand what that change means. And in the produce industry, we've seen some of that when it comes to social media with the cucumbers, or even during COVID when people were using the tomatoes and making the instant pasta dishes. So again, to me, it's staying nimble, it's following those changes and seeing what we can do as suppliers in the industry to provide these great, delicious foods to consumers to encourage healthier eating, to encourage better for you snacking. The movement and the change where with food is medicine. There's just I'm going on, but there's so much out there because with social media and with all of us having phones and computers in our hip pocket, we're staying on top of what those trends are, how things are changing, how the winds are going, even politically. With the new Maha edict going on with RFK Jr. and what that means for people, because all of that change can also be confusing. And so to me, as a change maker and a leader in the industry, for us to simplify some of that messaging, provide those better for you products to encourage people to eat more and to eat better so they feel better at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, you kind of tipped me off to my next question. But I think you can go a little bit deeper with this. So, as you alluded to, consumers' tastes evolve and change. And, I think a lot of times from everything we're hearing with what we're doing research wise, but also, in presentations I've sat at these big industry events, you talk about some of the dynamics of different generations. So maybe go into that a little bit more about, how you stay ahead of those. Because, yes, the TikTok trend is great. And it obviously, helps build interest in a particular piece of produce. But, trends change really quick. So kind of talk to me about some of that with like different generations. And then, trends versus what might be something that has more staying power, and just kind of how all of that goes into marketing.
Well, for us, what we focus on is what we want to present to the consumer, which at the end of the day is a better for you dip or a better for you item that adds some type of nutrient value. And so that hits really across all generations. And we've seen, boomers are still out there and they're still buying. Gen Xers, those of us that drank from water hoses growing up out in the yard and, came in when at 10 o'clock. And then even millennials and Gen Z, Gen Z is really focused on, and thank goodness for their parents, teaching them a broader spectrum of food, a broader spectrum of nutrients, a broader spectrum of taste and cultures. So what can we do to encourage those tastes and for each of those generations and encourage that consumption. Because to me, again, it's up to the supplier to see what we can do to, or the manufacturer to provide different ways for these different generations to consume the products. For example, for guacamole, we are coming out with some really good kind of spicier flavors that Gen Z really loves, but we're talking to millennials, Gen X, and even boomers on how to use those guacamole items differently. So it's not just about, opening up your favorite bag of chips and dipping it into the guacamole. It's, avocados are nutrient dense. They have good fats. They have some fiber. And you can put it on a sandwich. You can top your salad. You can do multiple things with it. And so really encouraging people to take really good produce items, use it in different ways that sparks the interest. That was, again, going back to even with the Gen Z, with the cucumber craze, that was how to use a cucumber different. It wasn't just cut it up and put it in a salad. Well, to some degree it was, because they were using it in very creative ways in different salads, and it was encouraging different tastes and different ways to use things. So as a marketer, we look at those different trends, we look at what we make and how we can tweak that to really hit the generational needs and the generational taste buds of those consumers.
Yes. So, I think I want to do a really quick look back, and then we'll hit the future and some of my other questions. So, talk about you talk about, like, encouraging consumers and kind of bringing new things to them. Is there any campaign in particular that you think I hate to say is a change maker, just even though that's the theme of our podcast, but anything in particular that's been like, real, that you've been a part of, that you think is like really shifted consumer behavior or just the way that the industry has viewed fresh produce?
To me, the one that we've launched this year was our grab and go product. And the reason to me why it's a change maker is there hasn't been many dip products, produce dip products that people can take on the go and eat in their car, go into games. Our bean dips, say, for example, have some good fiber and some good nutrient value for those kiddos that are going to a soccer game, or they need just some kind of refueling during the day, or even a parent, parents, and I say this from experience, we're in the car a lot, we're traveling a lot. And to me, to have a product that can encourage better for you consumption, that can change the way people view snacking. They don't have to run through a quick service drive-through and get that bag of fries or get that burger. Go to a convenience store, go to your grocery store, pick up these little grab and go items, grab a pack of carrots, maybe go ahead and grab your favorite chips or grab a wrap and have some type of nutrient valued snack and dip that you can take on the go, that you can have with you to help satisfy that taste and that flavor when you're on the go. Because, we're used to, as a society, quick and easy, and yes, quick and easy is great, but we have to start rethinking how we view quick and easy, and when we talk about a value proposition on products, it's not just the cost value to us on the marketing side. It's how do you create nutrient value? How do you create and provide consumers ideas for that nutrient value of what they're consuming? So it goes beyond cost. It goes about how does it make you feel inside and out, and you're making better food decisions for you and your family.
That's really interesting. And I think that your comments really dovetail perfectly into the next question, which is kind of talking about those barriers to driving change. As you well know, in the marketing industry, trying to introduce products, trying to build brand awareness, all of those things can be challenges at times. So talk about some of those barriers to driving change in the fresh produce industry.
Well, people are comfortable, especially in this day and age, with a few dollars that they have in their pocket to venture out and buy things that are different. To get them away from their, say, traditional apple, and maybe get them to try a new variety. But if they only have, say, $5 in their pocket for an arbitrary number, that they probably will stick to what they know, because say if they purchase it and they don't like it, then they feel like they've wasted those dollars. So for us, it's really trying to get the message out there to yes, we understand it could be a reach financially, but do try it, because at the end it will make you feel better. But I think it's also up to us in the industry to provide more information about, say, said apple or the different varieties of our guacamole. What's in there? What are the benefits? What are the flavors? And offering that up to say, yes, we understand that it could be a little tricky for you to try something new, but we promise that once you try it and once you taste it, that you will be coming back.
Wow, you were just setting me up for question after question. This is perfect. And we didn't rehearse this or anything.
Not at all.
So that, I think, like I said, this your comments just totally set us up for the next question, which is really to talk about that, the ways marketing and fresh produce needs to change to stay relevant. And you've alluded to some of this with some of the flavors that Quiero has tapped into that might be of interest to younger generations, but maybe talk about it in a little bit more of a broad sense. Like, you know, there's a lot of fresh produce out there, and I know, a lot of people tuning in might be competing for the same retail space, but maybe just talk a little bit about that driving change, staying relevant, what the fresh produce industry either needs to do or it needs to keep doing.
Well, the produce industry, and I've been in it for a while, it was a lot of old school thinking for a while, but we're seeing change makers, in my opinion, all over the retail sector. We have some great buyers in the Chicago area, great buyers in the Florida area that are looking to social media, that are looking to get more information out there about the different items in their produce departments, because that's the big key, is to really educate consumers on what's out there, the difference that's out there. You're go back to the apple example. What are other varieties of apples, because there are so many varieties and they're all so delicious, but everybody has a different taste, a different flavor that they like, and educating consumers on what that is. We had a retailer show just this past week where a retailer invited in their suppliers and had their store managers go through and taste their products so they could become more educated on the products within their department. So as consumers were walking their produce departments, they can say, hey, what is the difference between this apple? Or say for us, what's the difference between this flavor of guacamole versus this flavor of guacamole? And oh my gosh, I see they have a salsa. What is that about? Well, educating your employees in the store to have those one-on-one conversations with consumers. Number one, for me, the selfish side is yay sales, but on the other side of that, from the consumer perspective, educating them on what difference there is in store, maybe what their taste buds would like, and just helping them understand the different varietal things that are in a produce department, because produce departments are gorgeous. And me being in the industry, I still walk into a produce department. I'm like, where do I start? Where do I start? And I stay pretty educated. So making it easy for consumers to find this type of content too. Whether for me, Gen Xers still love Facebook, and the younger generations are going into Instagram and Reels, and I know Snapchat and the whole bit for even Gen Zers and below. But finding consumers where they are, providing them educational pieces for the different things that are in produce, and whether it's and going back to that is seasonality is huge. So when it's berry season in California, for example, making sure those retailers have some type of content around berries. When our avocados are at their best, really for us, putting content out there about right now is the best time to get our great hand scoop guacamole. It has the right amount of oil, the right amount of texture, the right amount of flavor. So it's really getting out there and educating consumers, and even the store operators on what's in their departments to help with the consumers when they have questions.
Yes, and I think to your point, it goes beyond just sweets.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of just guacamole and some of the packaging. There could be spicy and there
Mhm.
can be mild. That to me, yes, that's great, because I might not go for the spicy. I tend to go for the mild, but I want to know what other flavors are in there.
Mhm.
Is there a chipotle, which is a little bit more smoky than maybe a jalapeno? Just kind of understanding a little bit more about the full flavor profile, I think, is important, especially when shopping for dips and guacamole, which your world, yeah, I think that's really important. And I love what you said about, retailers getting in and really trying what they're serving, because I think that's important. You've got to be able to offer advice when someone asks. And so, yeah, I think that's really important. So thank you for all of that.
Well, and I think too, as consumers, we do what we can, putting my consumer hat on, staying educated and trying to make my grocery list before I go to the store. But I get to the store and like I said, I walk in and I'm like, oh, that looks good. And that looks good, especially because I usually go when I'm hungry, which we know that's the wrong time to go. But I think having those educated produce people or store people to kind of help you, like you said. So is this your question, is this Chipotle, is it more on the smoky side or not? Well, somebody that has tasted that can go, yeah, but it has a little bit more heat probably, Christina, than what you'd like. So I would still steer you to this one rather than this one. So I think that's huge to have those educated. And again, I know labor is tough in retail stores. I know it's tough, and I know getting those people educated is really hard. But again, and I waving my magic wand, if I could do something, would be to somehow increase all knowledge to those people on the floor. That is really our first, they're the first people out there that talk to the consumers for us.
And unfortunately, as much as we'd like to think, and there are great and educated consumers, there's still a ton of consumers that have no idea. I remember I was shopping for blueberries at a retailer, and this lady next to me goes, "Oh, these blueberries are so small." And it was out of season. And it was just, and I kind of looked at her and I just said, "Oh, let's look at the packaging. I wonder where they came from." And, it said on the packaging exactly where they came from, and they were imported blueberries. And I'm like, and I just don't think consumers think about that. And I realize, I'm probably operating at a higher level of knowledge than, 90% of consumers that go into the store, or maybe more, or there might be more consumers that are knowledgeable if we're all fresh produce people shopping. But, it's still a significant amount that just have no clue. They have no clue what's in season, what's not. They just magically think that the produce department waves their wand and, everything fresh appears the next day. And that, we know that's not the
Yeah.
case. So,
And
yeah.
everything is a juicy, beautiful, delicious berry.
Yeah,
Every time
it's
you
perfect.
pop it in your mouth. I mean, consumers want it now, and they want it good, and they want it just bam. And they want it for $1.
Yeah, they want everything, everything everywhere all at once, and, for free.
Yes,
Yeah. But I
exactly.
guess, I
Exactly.
guess that's human nature, right? Um,
Right. Yeah, very much so.
so let's talk about disruption and innovation, and let's talk about that in your neck of the woods, which is snacking, but also that fresh produce snacking.
Mhm.
What do you see? What's the biggest thing coming? What's the biggest opportunity for innovation and disruption in this snacking, fresh produce snacking space?
Well, I think it's already started with the RTE meals that are kind of coming out of the deli and moving their way into produce. Having already pre-cut, say, carrots and celery in a self-contained container with some type of nutrient dense dip, which for me would I'd love to be our guacamole, just because consumers are still looking for convenient, and we do know that even if they have $5 to spend, we do know that they will pay for convenience because everybody is so super busy. So as we're innovating in the produce department, and as we're just innovating, ready to eat foods in general, having those things cut, washed, prepared, yet nutrient dense, to me is huge. And we've seen that with a lot of stores, and that's really kind of what precipitated us to create our grab and go, because again, for consumers just to come in that ready to eat section, what can I find now, what can I buy on Sunday, keep in my fridge, I can grab it, eat in the car, eat on the go, put in a lunchbox, that will make me feel good, that isn't ultra processed. Because as we're hearing, and with GLP-1 medication, everybody's staying away from that, which they should in general. But portion controlled, nutrient dense, easy. And as we know, produce is nature's food. So again, how can we have that available, easy for consumers to eat, and how do we innovate flavors? There's so many great produce companies out there that are creating these steam bags with the different flavors and the different varieties, again, increasing consumption. and adding different flavors and tweaking things on the fly just to stay up with trends. And again, encourage some of those different tastes that are, whether it's an Asian flair, Mediterranean, or anything like that, to just get consumers to eat more.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a very good point. And yes, I've obviously written up quite a few releases on some of these new products, and it
Mm-hmm.
is fascinating to see the different flavors coming out. It's great. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's a few that follow some trends that we're seeing right now with hot heat and that sweet
Mm-hmm.
heat. But yeah, it's amazing to me just some of the flavor combinations. I mean, they sound fantastic. It's sometimes it's hard, and you say no, not to go shopping hungry. I feel like you shouldn't edit press releases hungry either, because
Man,
like
that is a great point.
so we're at the last of the I don't know, tough or easy questions. I haven't heard yet from guests whether they feel like the first part of the interview is the easy part or the second part's the hard part. But anyway, so I'll wrap it up with this one. Give us some advice to other marketing leaders in the fresh produce industry, or those entering the fresh produce industry in marketing. What advice would you have for them to drive change?
My first thing is to stay nimble. Don't be number one. Don't. Well, I guess I should say number one. Number one, don't be scared of change. Number two, be nimble to adjust to that change, because I don't believe that consumers are going to go backwards in their thinking of status quo. Consumers with us, again, having a phone in our pocket, having technology at our fingertips, they're researching flavors, or even the culturally diverse backgrounds of so many consumers anymore. They understand and know different flavors. And I think as produce people, let's not be scared of that change. Let's not be scared of some kind of maybe some wacky trends that we're like, oh, we're not sure how that's going to work. Try it. Be nimble. Don't get so bogged down with how things used to be, because I really don't believe we're going backwards. I think that consumers wanting to know where their food is from, the sustainability, the agriculture, the farmers, I just don't be scared of it. Tell your story. Talk about your story. Just today, I saw a great thing on Facebook about a little farm outside of Lubbock, Texas. And I love that. I love that there is a farmer being premiered on Facebook and on social media, just talking about what they go through, the things that they produce. So don't be scared to do that. Change is here, and change is going to continue. And you just have to stay nimble and agile to that change, and making sure you can be there for the consumer and meet them where they are.
I think that's great advice. So speaking of being nimble, we're on to our fresh take questions. So these are a
Okay.
little different. So let's talk about what's something that people would be surprised to know about you.
Well, me living in Texas most of my life, and I'm diehard Texas all the way around, that I was actually born in South New Jersey. So I'm legit a Jersey girl. So when I say that to people, their eyes get really big like this, and they're very surprised.
All right. Um. So if you weren't doing what you're doing now, produce marketing, what would your dream job be?
Well, it's funny that when my husband and I first started dating, he asked me that question. I think trying to probe into what type of human or person I was, or my professional aspirations. And I told him I wanted to be a lifeguard on a beach in Jamaica. But I've since kind of changed that. His eyes, again, with the big eyes, he was like, "Oh, I'm not sure you're kind of marrying material then." But my dream job actually would be teaching, and I was fortunate enough after I left my previous job and took some time off, that I taught, and I taught middle school, and I absolutely loved it. I love the kids. And there's just something about reaching some of these kiddos that just don't have people there for them. So I would go back to teaching, definitely.
I can see that, but I feel like when you're asking dream job, you're kind of throwing practicality. You're kind of throwing, you know, normal constraints out the window. Really, like that. When you ask that question, I mean, I feel like a lifeguard on a Jamaica beach is not. I mean, Is that a dream job? Do you want to live in Jamaica? Yes. Like, you want to earn a living? I mean,
I just want to be on a beach, honestly. So whatever that entails, like just put me an umbrella on the beach and just keep me there. I don't even really, I can count waves. That could be my job. I just sit there and count the waves for the day and give that to somebody. I don't know who's interested in that, but I could do it.
I mean, I'm like, I was with you when you said that. I'm like, that's an irresponsible answer. I feel like you can't judge someone based on that answer. I mean, yes, you're supposed to see a little insight into their personality, but I also feel like there's nothing, like, you can't be like, oh, that's an impractical dream job. Like, it's a dream job. It's not,
Well,
Anyway,
I need to get you in touch with my husband because he was judging.
yeah, well, I mean, that's interesting. Well, he clearly, like, well, I guess we're not going to Jamaica.
He's like, dang it. That's funny.
So the next question, I think you've already answered this, but we'll see if you have anything else to say. What is something that if you could instantly fix one challenge in the fresh produce industry, what would it be?
Mine would be increased consumption. Make it available to more people, increase consumption, uh, figure out a way to almost make it more satiable to where when people eat an apple, maybe they feel a little more full. I don't know how to do that. Just decreasing the barriers for people to eat more produce. Again, whether that's availability, whether that's cost, whether that's what the heck do I do with it, that would be my magic wand.
I like that. All right, last question. What is something inside in ag or outside of the fresh produce industry that you think people should be paying more attention to?
You mentioned it earlier, seasonality. I wish there was a book, and I believe that IFP may have it on the website, but it's not so out there for consumers. But understanding seasonality. So when that woman is standing next to you talking about those blueberries and they're imported, it's just somehow nudging and going, hey, it's really not blueberry season right now. But this store and the produce industry is doing their best to provide blueberries year round. But sometimes they're just not as good. They're just not as juicy, but they are good blueberries. So that, to me, I think I'd love to figure out how to, when is orange season year round, where oranges are, again, going back to apples, just where they come from and when's the best time to get a really great apple.
Yes, I think that's great. And I think it's important. I think what's happened is, I mean, we used to have seasonality, but now thanks to the global food supply and technologies that have allowed us to get fresh produce from all over the world quickly, it's no longer, blueberry season, we got to pick our blueberries, we got to freeze them, we got to do whatever. Now it's okay. Yeah. And out of season, let's go to the store. We're going to get our blueberries anyway. Yeah, it is very interesting. There's still some seasonality. You see it with some varieties, you see it with some produce, but it's it's come to the point that consumers just go to the store and they expect it there no matter what. So
I wish we could pumpkin spice latte our produce items.
Yeah, but let's just not have pumpkin spice lattes come out and all. And I went to the department store not too long ago, and Christmas decorations are out, and I'm like, can we just have one season? Let's focus on one season, and one season at a time.
I know. It's a little crazy. Just in people that right after back to school put up their Halloween and fall decorations. I'm still, I at least give it to a little bit after the 1st of October. Number one, I get tired of it really fast. So once I put it up, I want it down pretty quick. So I try to get closer to Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then I have my Christmas up for a short period of time, and then I'm done. But yeah.
Yeah. I find it hard to let go of summer, so I tend to be pretty reluctant in putting up fall and welcoming fall in. But
I agree. I'm with you. Like I am a diehard flip flopper until like my toes are frozen. So I agree. I'm with you.
Well, that's it for the Fresh Take questions and for this episode. Thank you again, Tara, for joining me. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I know I'm going to be seeing you relatively soon.
Yes, we will. Thanks again for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And don't forget, if you enjoyed what you heard today and saw, we'd love it if you took a moment to rate and review the show, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for tuning in, and all you do to keep things moving in the fresh produce industry from field to table. Hey everyone, Christina Herrick, host of the Packer Podcast, and I'm here to tease our next episode. Tara Murray of Quiero joins me. We talk a lot about driving consumer behavior and consumption, and just, some of the ways that the fresh produce industry can really get those consumers engaged in consuming fresh produce. And you got to stay for our fresh take questions, because I asked Tara about her first dream job, and her answer's fantastic. I'm not going to tell you here, because you got to stay tuned, but you'll enjoy it. All right, check it out soon. Bye.